Welcome to the OMG podcast, brought to you by Onward Media Group. Join us as we explore storytelling with video, life as a startup, and community impact in Kitchener-Waterloo. We dive into industry trends, behind-the-scenes insights, and the challenges and successes of our journey. Whether you're a creative, entrepreneur, or just passionate about video and storytelling, we've got something for you. Now let's get into today's episode.
Hello and welcome to another episode of OMG, a podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Bondi, and today we're joined by Kristy Miller, founder and CEO of The Scented Market, a proudly Canadian business that has grown from a small idea to a multi-million-dollar business in a couple of years. We're going to talk a little bit about your journey and kind of the hustle behind the business and kind of how you've taken it from this, small inspirational idea to a large business. Thank you for joining us today, Kristy.
Thank you for having me, Darren.
I would love to hear a little bit about what inspired you to start The Scented Market.
I think my inspiration came, I know my inspiration came when I was in the shower one morning. Let's get personal here.
Yeah.
I was in the shower one morning and I had lit a scented candle before I gotten in the shower. And when I got out of the shower, I saw all this black soot all over my wall. And I thought, oh my goodness, my husband is going to not be happy with me. He's going to have to repaint the walls. And then I really got thinking, what am I breathing in? If it's leaving black soot on my walls, what is it leaving on my lungs? And, I had young kids at the time, I had pets, and I really went down a deep, dark hole in researching what kind of ingredients and what wax was used in scented candles. And it turned out they were pretty toxic.
So a lot of people might do that and say, hey, this is gross. I'm going to throw out these candles. What inspired you to continue beyond just that initial being like, I don't want to pollute my house with this stuff, to actually saying, you know what, there's a gap here that I want to fill. And how do I do that? Where did that come from?
I love candles. I was a candle burner from a very young age. So a little bit of a candle obsession. And I thought as a mom, as a busy mom, you're always taking care of everyone else. I'm taking care of the kids, the pets, the household. I'm the one that's bringing all of the products into the house. So I started really reading ingredient labels and really targeting products and bringing products into my home that were healthier. And I thought, I don't want to have to give up something as simple as a candle that really, for me, meant moments of self-care, even if it was for, an hour and that was it. How can I bring a product into my home that is safe for my pets, that is clean burning, that's okay to breathe in around, myself and my kids? And I thought, you know what? I'm going to research it and I'm going to make one myself. And so really the premise was I wasn't even ready to start a business. I actually owned another business at the time that I was running, and I never thought that this was going to be a business. I simply made a clean burning candle for myself and my family.
I love that. So always been kind of entrepreneurial then. If you're running a business before, having that kind of interest or at least that passion and drive towards it has been something that has been kind of inherent in you from the beginning, you would say?
Well, I was in university when I was 20 years old, and I couldn't do it anymore. I thought, I don't want to work shift work. I don't want to work evenings and weekends. And so I ended up starting my first business when I was 20, but I dropped out of university. And 20 years ago, entrepreneurship was not romanticized as it is today. And so I was essentially the family failure. And my family was ashamed that I was a university dropout. And it was not a good look for everyone. But my boyfriend at the time, who is now my husband, said, you know what, I'll support you no matter what you decide. If you want to start your own business, I'll help. I'll do whatever I have to do. And I think that's really where my entrepreneurial journey went. I was like, why would I work 40 hours for someone else when I can work 100 hours for myself?
Yeah. And it's interesting. I when you kind of led with my boyfriend at the time, I'm glad that it's now your husband, but that support system, like how is your family, your husband at the time, your boyfriend, you're 20 years old, dropping out and looking to pursue business. How crucial has that been kind of in shaping your journey? I know for myself personally, if I didn't have the support of my partner, I wouldn't be able to do half the things I do in terms of like the business world, because that support is so crucial. How has that shaped your journey throughout the years?
I mean, it's definitely been a really great experience, and it's shaped us in a way that I think right from the beginning, him and I are both very hard workers. So I think that life skill was already instilled in us growing up. So we worked hard for everything we have. We know that, you if you want something, you need to work hard for it. And so it really came naturally to us. And when I said to him, like, I'm gonna quit school and quit my part-time job and I'm gonna start a business, he was like, hell yes. Like, we are all in. And I mean, don't get me wrong, he was already in corporate. He already had an established career set ahead of him, which I mean, he did for 16, 17, 18 years. But it allowed me to take the risk and to take the leap. And I said to him, I don't know if I'm ever going to make money. Like maybe 3 years down the line, I'm going to make money. But when I started my first business, legit, like the first month I made money and I was like, okay, I know I can do this. This is what I'm good at. And let's see what we can do and grow it from here.
I love that. I love that. I want to bring it back to the scented market a little bit. So you started with a healthy, safe candle. How did it expand from there? Like, how did you take that and say, okay, I can sell this now? People want this. How did that happen?
I didn't try to sell it. I never tried to sell a product. I was trying to educate people. I was trying to educate my family and my close friends. I'm like, there's a group of girls sitting around Friday night. We're watching a movie. We're lighting candles. I'm like, did you guys know that this candle is so toxic? Like, we are all, getting lung cancer right now by breathing this in. And I would just show up and I would bring candles that I made with me everywhere. There was a candle scent. I call it butt first coffee. And so I really,
I'm sorry, I heard that as butt, as in like your butt first, but then the butt first coffees.
Yeah.
I'm actually glad you clarified
And
that.
I called it that because nothing happens in our house before coffee. But I really couldn't find a clean burning coffee scented candle. So that was the first candle I ever made that I was like, yes, I love this. I also like the mason jar that it comes in for me with the lid. Aesthetically, it was pleasing in my home. I love to decorate my home. I take very good care of my home. And I love the fact that you could wash out the soy wax. We use 100% soy wax that's renewable and sustainable. And you wash the jar out and you can repurpose it. So I was like, I'm ticking all these boxes that I'm really pleased about and moving in the right direction. And I just started telling my friends and family about it, started showing up at markets, and it started doing really well. And it started selling. And I was like, holy moly, I think I'm making money here.
And,
This maybe could be a business.
and all your labor of love at this point. Like you're just in the kitchen making candles.
I was melting wax on my kitchen stove while making dinner for my family simultaneously. And I didn't know it, but at the time I was accidentally dipping my hair braids in the wax pots. So I was like, yeah, right from the kitchen stove. And that's really where we hustled really hard, is on the kitchen stove, making hundreds and then thousands of candles that it just took off.
And so making dinner, making candles at the same time, being an entrepreneur and getting this business from an idea to improve the environment in your home to it being a multi-million-dollar business, like that's not easy to do, not even just from the logistics of it, but with a family with 3 boys. Like we talked about this a little bit on our call. Like it's got to be hard to balance both those things. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced over these last few years, specifically trying to scale this business, going from in your kitchen to also raising 3 boys at the same time? Like how do you pull that off?
With a lot of organization. I mean, we don't have a lot of families. There's not a lot of family members we can rely on to say watch the kids. We just involve the kids in every step of the way. We brought them in, they labeled jars, they stuck wicks inside jars. We've really included them in the entire process. I, at one point, dealt with a ton of mom guilt. But when I said to my husband, I'm going to start the scented market, give me 2 years. I'm probably going to be a bad partner and a bad mom, and our house is probably going to be untidy, but I really want to give my effort for 2 years. And if I can get this business up and going, I will, daily back on the rest of my tasks, and I'll put 100% into this, and I'll hire help so that I can be more of a presence. I think just coming to terms with, I've missed some school plays and some school trips. I've missed some important birthdays, but I'm really setting my kids and my family up for the long run and the long success. So I see it as a long game play.
Mhm.
And I think in a society today where immediate satisfaction is so important, that I really looked at what is best for my family in 10 and 20 years from now. And for me, it was giving up those 2 years so that I could build something really stable and successful. Because at this point, I recognize that I'm not just a crafter, I'm not a side hustle. I was a businesswoman that made a candle. And I think candle makers really get stereotyped into like the moms on the kitchen stove playing around. And you're not really making money, but you're having
Mhm.
fun, and that's what
Mhm.
matters. And from day one for me, this was a business. When I decided it was a
Yeah.
business, I put my business brain on, and I put my pen to my paper, and I made plans, and I followed through, and I executed it in a business fashion.
Wow, like it's such an interesting perspective because a little bit about as a parent too, you have to be able to take care of yourself and your own needs to be able to support a family. And if you have this passion for something that you know is going to set your family up for future success and just future health as a family unit, kind of sacrificing in the short term, putting having that support from your husband is also crucial to be able to come together and do this and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to have to put my head down for a little bit, but I know it's going to be worth it, and I'm passionate about it. Like you seem clearly very passionate about what you're doing, and I think that goes so long in actually having the success because it's not going to be easy. And like you said, 100 hours for yourself versus 40 hours from somebody else.
Right.
And we've also talked a little bit about too previously, but being a woman in this space as well, in this business space. Like obviously, the candle market is probably a little more heavily dominant in the female side, but as a woman in business, as an entrepreneur, as someone who is building this business, what kind of challenges have you faced on that side of things? Is it's still kind of the old boys club in a lot of spaces in business.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think though, to kind of just flip that on its head, I feel like it was a little bit of a me issue, and it was a little bit of me thinking, yeah, oh no, I'm a woman in business and I just sell candles and I'm just not good enough to show up to this room of men running other multi-million dollar businesses. So although women in business do have to work harder for where they're at, that's just a fact. I felt like for me, it was a me issue, and I really had to work through my thoughts and feelings, and work through my mindset in order to show up in these male dominated rooms and literally look all these businessmen in the eye and say, I make candles for a living, and for them to take me seriously.
Mhm.
And a lot of them took me more serious than I took myself. And I really attribute, there was 3 women specifically in my scented market journey that really saw something in me. One being my producer on Dragon's Den that I didn't even see in me yet. And I thought, I'm just a mom in a kitchen just making candles. Like, who cares that I was doing 2 million a year at that point
Right.
in candles? Like, I just thought that was normal. Doesn't everybody who starts
Seem
a
normal.
business wake up, build a business, sell millions of dollars worth of things, and like just go on their daily life? So I think it was brought to my attention by 3 people that had met me in
Mhm.
my cross that I was a little bit more special.
It's a little pretty extraordinary, right? Like if I don't know, the things I've heard, right? You start a business, you can't expect to make a profit for a while. Like you have turned this around quickly, also during a pandemic, right? Like this was
Mhm.
you started this in the 2019,
2018. Yep.
2018, sorry.
Yep.
And to be able to again have it grow throughout that time and continue growing is incredibly impressive. I do want to talk a little bit about Dragon's Den. How did that come about? How did that whole situation play out?
So I think what most people don't know is I actually applied to be on Dragon's Den in 2018 when I was brand new.
Wow.
And I went to the auditions. I got an in-person audition, and they come back to me and they said, "No, we just don't think you're ready." And I was so devastated. I was like, "This is the end of my candle career. I can't continue on." And just chug through that whole like mentality of rejection
Yeah.
and what that felt like, and sat with those feelings, but thought, you know what? I've always watched it growing up as a kid. I always thought it would be so neat to be on it. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to work on it. I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to work on the business,
Mhm.
get a little bit more stable, get my feet on the ground. And they reached out to me again in 2022. And I went in for an interview, and it was incredible that they accepted me on the show, well, to film. So
Yeah.
just because they invite you to film doesn't mean they're going to air your episode on TV.
Which feels like it would be a heartbreaker.
Yeah, so I hauled all my stuff, including our cast iron bathtub full of 250 bath bombs, to the CBC studios in Toronto, and I essentially set up like a little retail store in the studio.
Love that. I did watch the episode. I thought it was really interesting. The thing that blew their minds the most, and it's still from people who are outside looking in, candle business, as you said, right? Like it's a thing you hear about the moms on Facebook that are selling from their kitchen counter as a hobby. For you to be scaling and growing and selling as much as you are in a competitive market, it was impressive to them and it's impressive to me. I just it blows my mind. When they reached back out, was it something that you like? Was it because of your success in the last couple of years, or was it like you've applied before and we want you back? Because I mean, you came in with obviously a lot more ammunition than you did the first time,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, I think it was our social media presence.
Okay.
Like right from day one, when I built the scented market, I knew I had to be consistent on socials. And so I show up every morning. I say good morning. I tell my entire community what the plan is for the day, what's happening for the week if they want to tune in. And then, if we're launching a new product on Friday, like what that looks like. So I'm just a really great communicator in life in general. And I think, we've been married for, oh my goodness, over 17 years now. Like, I'm just a good communicator, and relationships are built on communication. And
Wow.
I just thought of every single customer as a community member that I needed to communicate with. And if they knew what to expect or they knew what was up and coming, that would be the key to our relationship and our success. And turns out we went hard on social platforms, and the producer did come across me on social and said, "Hey, remember when you were here in
Yeah.
2018?" So it was a really interesting full circle moment for me.
Mhm. And I don't want to give spoilers to anybody who hasn't seen it, but you did walk away with a deal. Tell us a little about how the business changed from there. Like, you maybe even give a little insight as to what that means on Dragon's Den when you come to terms with somebody. Obviously, you kind of walk away from that setting, but what ends up happening after that?
Yeah. So it's interesting that not a lot of people know this, but I actually filmed in front of the dragons for an hour and 35 minutes. I stood there and we had a conversation. And it was like I thought of it like, "Oh my goodness, I'm getting, free business mentorship by six of arguably the top business people in Canada for an hour and 35 minutes." And so TV cuts that down to 5 minutes. So I had no idea what they were going to
Mhm.
show. I had no, at one point, all six dragons were comparing me to Martha Stewart. And I was
Wow.
like, didn't she go to jail for tax evasion? I was like, I don't know enough about her. So of course I immediately went home that day and I Googled Martha Stewart, and she is an incredible businesswoman. But I think as far as my business, it really did set us up for success in a sense of, our website went nationwide. And so when I walked away from the studio, you get a deal. Spoiler alert, I got all six offers from all six dragons.
Wow.
And then they ended up fighting over me in front of me and teaming up with one another and offering me more money than what I came in with. Um, but I won't tell you who I took a deal with. I think once you leave there, you go into due diligence, and like their teams contact me and my
Right.
teams, and then it goes to lawyers, and then it's such a long process, though. It can be months,
Yep.
sometimes even years, that it gets drawn out for, depending on how sticky the contracts are.
Mhm.
And so currently to date, we have not signed,
Oh, wow.
but I still do have an open and a really great relationship with the two dragons I took a deal with. Like I could send them a message and they would get back to me, or, I've seen them at events, just recently a couple months ago, and like we had a good chat. So, developing those relationships and those networking, I mean, that was also an
Super
added
important.
bonus that I didn't expect.
Yeah, 100%. Um, you talk about your social presence a little bit, and I think one thing that stands out. Again, I still don't understand the secret sauce about what makes you stand out so much more than, again, in a very competitive market. But I do think part of it is into that social presence and your presence on it and doing this every day. And like you said, even if you don't have something to share, I'm going to share. Um, w- Thinking about your community like that, in a sense that these are people I need to connect with. How have you kind of cracked the code with social media? I mean, you have a big following on Instagram specifically. I know that. And is it just was it just that? Is it just that effort, or is there something that you said, you know what, this is working at a small scale? The more I do this, the ROI is obvious. Or is it just something that this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to grow?
Deep down inside, I'm like a secret content creator and I love creating it. I don't know, I just feel like I am really good at connecting with people.
Mhm.
And I think it helps that when I started the scented market, I wasn't pushing a product in anyone's face. I was like, let me educate you. Whether you choose to burn my candles or someone else's candles, this is what you need to do, or this is what you need to look out for. So there was never like a do or die moment where I was like, oh no, if I don't make money, I'm going under. Or, I just thought, you know what? I'm a hard worker. If this doesn't work out, I'll bounce back and I'll go get a job,
Mhm.
whatever I have to do to
Mhm.
support my family, or I'll start another business. And so I think that fear of financial scarcity wasn't there for me. I was just like, I was letting it flow.
Mhm.
I was communicating. It's very authentic. It's very natural for me. And I think I am the secret sauce, and I also think that nobody can duplicate me.
Yeah.
So my like key to innovation is authenticity.
And that resonates for us, I think, is as a small business ourselves and the community that we speak to is authenticity is in this world where you can connect with anybody you want and get products from anybody you want. Having relationships that are built on trust and authenticity go so much further, right? You can get those candles elsewhere, you can get the same type, but having you not come in and try and sell them on your product specifically, being like, listen, like it's important that you're doing this for your health, for your future. If you want to buy it through me, great. I can facilitate that. But I guess that's that non-pushy salesman style has built a following for you. Do you have advice for people looking to leverage? So if they are in a similar space as you, looking to leverage social media, is it that in your face all the time, like I'm going to be present so people see me? Is that the advice, or what would you say to someone like that?
I think my advice to people would be don't forget and don't be afraid to ask for help. If there's a day I'm on social and I'm like, hey, like I wouldn't mind you sharing the scented market with your family or
Mhm.
friends. Or like if I'm doing a pop up at a market or at an event, I'm like, hey, give us a follow on social. So I think that we as entrepreneurs just don't ask enough for help and just don't ask.
Mhm.
I mean, there's lots of instances where I've said, like, thank you for your kind words. We would love a follow, or I would love a follow. And they're like, oh, yeah, sure. I'll give you a follow. Well, that's one follow I wasn't going to get,
Yep.
but I asked politely, authentically, and got a follow. So I think that's the one thing is that we just forget that we can ask for help and that you'll be surprised at the amount of help that we receive when we ask. And it's unexpected, but delightfully unexpected.
I like that. I like that. And specifically for women in business, do you have advice for young entrepreneurs, women that are looking to get started in a business? Maybe some of the same fears, even if it's a mindset. You said it was like for you kind of getting out of your own head, but I think too that's societal norms that have established some of those thoughts when you were younger growing up. Well, it's a man's world. What advice would you have for young women who are looking to start a business, whether it's this or other type of business, but being able to get in that space and having the confidence that they belong just as much as men do in this space?
For young women, I would say don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. When I first started my first business, I reached out to our local business centers, I reached out to our local chambers. Heck, I even walked into the post office with a couple of coffees and said, will someone teach me how to ship a candle? Because I have no idea how to
Wow.
ship a product. So I think really thinking outside the box and, not being afraid to choose a different path. And, I know a lot of young people just think they can go on social and that's the way to build a business. But like, that's really just the story of the business. Building the business comes down to the numbers, the financials. And I think going back to Dragon's Den, like I built the scented market to $2.3 million in sales in a year with my gut, with that was my gut instinct. And I think the biggest benefit that came from Dragon's Den for me personally and for the scented market professionally was that it taught me to lead with numbers and real data. And I mean, my gut obviously was getting me places and was going, but I can't take this business or I couldn't take this business to eight figures. with a gut feeling. I have to lead with the information and get in front of the information. So I think really getting yourself in front of the information a lot sooner than what I did could potentially be really helpful in helping young entrepreneurs be successful in the long run.
I really like that because it is one of those things where, you know, we actually talked to somebody else in a similar in a way that it was having a business that was problem oriented is a good place to start. So your gut was saying to you that, you know, these candles are toxic, or there's obviously something wrong with them, that they're creating soot, and what am I breathing in? And then as you learned, there was a problem here. These are candles that are out there. So you were out to solve a problem, and your gut took you far, and then you'd be able to kind of double down the numbers to make it go further. The interesting thing I find is that, you know, I think we with the other individual we talked about, it was kind of like having a flashy idea is different than having a problem to solve. So maybe it is about, first, your gut has to take you somewhere, but solving a problem is going to take you a long way when it comes to starting a business, because you have a built-in audience for it. People want, especially in today's day and age. I know my fiance is constantly checking the ingredients on things now. We're changing the way we
Mhm.
do things, and the pans we use, and the ingredients we use in our house. So I definitely think it's a valuable lesson to be learned, for sure, in my opinion. What's next for the scented market?
Oh my goodness. Well, 2025 was supposed to be the year we broke into the US.
Okay.
I actually received our trademark in the US December 24th, 2024, and I was super excited, and we had a plan all geared up to break into the US. And amongst all the economical turmoil,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say well, okay, we've put a pause on it.
Yep.
We're just kind of letting it grow naturally on its own. And so we've pivoted to, we are Canadian.
I like it.
We make our products in Canada. We employ 34 Canadian people. Let's give our damnedest to Canada this year. And so we are looking at a lot of collaborations and some really interesting partnerships with some really incredible Canadian companies that I'm really excited for. But I think because the seed planting came so late,
Mhm.
we're looking now more into like September
Yeah.
2025, whereas our US was ready to go in February
Mhm.
2025. So that's okay. You know what? The pivot just told us that my team and I are resilient. We can, pivot and change when we need to, and really go with the ebbs and flows of the economy, of,
Mhm.
what is going on in the world. And I'm really excited for 2025 because I think that with some of the partnerships we have, they're going to be really exciting. And they wouldn't have happened if we were solely focused on the US.
Yep.
So it's going to be an exciting year.
And I think that's fascinating. I think that's great because it has been a shift, obviously, in the landscape and the economy with the US and everything. And I think it bringing us back as Canadians and people who are running Canadian businesses, it really does give you this sense of, patriotism, to be like, you know what? No, we are Canadian. We're a Canadian business. We're proud to be Canadian. We started here. Let's take this thing and keep it Canadian for now, right? Like, it doesn't mean that you can't expand, but to say is, at the end of the day, we're a Canadian business and we support Canadian, and we're not going to back down to the kind of that mindset that we're less than the U.S. And so I admire that. I think that's great. Before we go, just where can we find the Scented Market? You're on Instagram, Facebook. Where can we find you?
Yeah, we're on all the platforms:
Amazing.
Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, YouTube, you name it. Just at the Scented Market, pretty simple. And you can shop with us. I actually have a discount code for you. Maybe if you want to put in the
We
notes of the
will.
show
We
for your
absolutely will.
viewers, a discount code to shop on www.thescentedmarket.ca if you're in Canada,
Love
and
it.
.com if you're in the US.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming today, Kristi. It was great chatting with you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the OMG podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained some valuable insights into storytelling with video, startup life, and our community impact in Kitchener-Waterloo. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on social media to stay updated on future episodes. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, reach out to us at info@onwardmediagroup.com.